Joe Biden facing growing pressure from Democrat women urging him to pick a black running mate. Kamala Harris is emerging as the frontrunner in the Veep stakes, but just last year, she challenged the former VP on race.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race. You also worked with them to oppose busing. There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
So is all forgiven? Here to debate is Republican strategist Joseph Pinion and Democratic strategist Kevin Walling. So, Kevin, I'll start with you. Are they buddies now? All let bygones be bygones?
They absolutely are. I mean, they've known each other for a long time. I'll note Senator Harris was very close with Beau Biden, the vice president's son. And of course, you run hard when you're running in a primary, and sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they're unfortunate. But I'll note, Dr. Joe Biden was campaigning with Senator Harris just 2 days ago and raising a lot of money for the campaign. And of course, there's a closeness there between the vice president and between Senator Harris. And I think, as you've seen with most Democratic polls in terms of who folks on our side want to see run with the vice president, it's Senator Elizabeth Warren, it's Senator Harris, among others. And she would be a formidable vice president alongside Joe Biden running at the top of the ticket.
So, Joseph, does that answer work for you? Because for me, when I watch two people go head to head on a debate stage, you watch Kamala Harris, put a lot of heat in Joe Biden's direction on a number of issues, his record on criminal justice and more. Now, suddenly to have them fuse as if nothing happened, that never sits right with me.
Well, look, I think the reality is that Kamala Harris never had a problem with Joe Biden's record on race. She had a problem with Joe Biden getting a larger percentage of black voters in the polls. And so, again, that little girl was me, was a poll-tested stunt, 6 months in the making, designed to sell a lot of T-shirts. It had very little to do with the needs of black people across this country. And as we saw with the latest vote to basically stop justice dead in its tracks, most of what Democrats are talking about has nothing to do with the needs of black people. So Democrats want to continue to play this identity politics. They think that somehow they can rebuild the Obama coalition by throwing a brown face at the bottom of the ticket. And I think, unfortunately, unless they're planning on putting Michelle Obama on the ticket herself, they might end up learning the same lesson in 2016 all over again.
And Michelle Obama would absolutely be a formidable candidate. So I want to ask you, Kevin, about Karen Bass. She's been floated as a VP choice, California congresswoman. She's made some comments in the past about Fidel Castro that Democrats are themselves saying has been troubling. This is her statement. Let's take a look. As Cuba begins 9 days of mourning, I wish to express my condolences to the Cuban people and the family of Fidel Castro. The passing of the Comandante en Jefe, that's Commander-in-Chief, is a great loss to the people of Cuba. So comments like this, won't they be a problem for centrist Democrats that Joe Biden would desperately need?
They could be, Jed. Of course, there's a huge Cuban-American population in the state of Florida, and we've seen some pushback from the Florida delegation to her remarks. I'll note that Karen Bass would be a formidable vice presidential contender. She was the first former black woman speaker of the California General Assembly, leads the Black Caucus in Congress, and just passed comprehensive police reform just last week before the House of Representatives. So, of course, no second choice is going to be strong in terms of a vice president based on previous remarks. But I think she, like Senator Harris, would be formidable. And again, they're not running in a vacuum. They're running against a president and a vice president who now, praise Vladimir Putin, as we talked about earlier in the show. The recent reports about the entanglements with Russian-backed groups in Afghanistan targeting our troops.
Kevin, let me interrupt you for a second. I want to toss this to Joe because Kevin's saying they would be formidable. Why? Why would they be? I mean, they don't have a record. Joe Biden needs someone. If we're talking about criminal justice reform, or we're talking about those issues, and that's what's happening in this moment, and that's what people want to address, his record is terrible on that. None of these people, I don't think, are coming forward with a record. Where is the record that helps him on those issues? I'm not seeing it. And I don't think this should just be about color. This has to be about what you have done to help African Americans, if that is your goal. Am I wrong here?
Look, I think when you talk about, Congresswoman Bass, look, she's accomplished in her own right. But do those accomplishments help Joe Biden in this moment? I would submit to you that they do not. If you're talking about, the constant problem that Democrats have is they have this revisionist history, cartoon version of socialism, and forget that this socialism has actually made real pain and real suffering in everyday people's lives. And so the people who are the descendants of Cubans do not forget. They want to tear down statues, and yet they'll place, basically mausoleums to a murderous dictator simply because he handed out free health care to the grandchildren of the people that he murdered. So I think ultimately, when you talk about who you should be picking, the goal is to build a coalition, not to lose entire constituencies. And if Democrats want to continue to ignore the fact that the ranking file Democratic voter is a moderate, they're going to end up in a lot of pain come 2020 all over again.
Well, thank you both for being here. It remains to be seen who he picks, but we'll be following it and catch up with you then. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Jed.
you.
Good to see you.